June?
Well, one thing is clear. The nation has begun its conversation that will culminate a date with its destiny on the 24th of June. How much will change by then? And what shifts within the political landscape are we going to see?
Find out more on the nation's biggest and most trusted news source, AYV, on Channel 33, on DSTV Channel 399, on Radio 101.7 FM, on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and of course on TikTok.
Yes, indeed. Only AYP. Because AYP, Nine Salone Sabi.
Welcome back. This is Wake Up Sierra Leone here on AYV TV. Don't forget to send your comments and questions to AYV News Facebook page. As usual, we'll get to read them out.
Welcome back, and this is Wake Up Sierra Leone on AYV Television. In our first segment, with barely 44 days to the June 24th multi-tier elections, we are going to discuss the role of the media in the fight against misinformation, disinformation, and fake news, and the emergence of social media in the country's politics. This morning, to discuss this issue, we have been joined by the president of the Sierra Leone Association of Journalists, Ahmed Said Nasrallah, and we're also expecting to have with us Dr. Tonia Musa, a media and communications experts. But good morning, Ahmed, and welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thank you for having me this morning.
Welcome back to Sierra Leone. I want to start before we go into the discussion proper. You've just returned from the US, where you had a lot of engagement. I saw you visited the NDI, the CPJ, and all of that. What is the benefit of this to the media, body in Sierra Leone?
Well, thank you very much. Well, you should know that I attended the IVLP under the US State Department, the International Visitor Leadership Program, under the Edward Morrow Program for Journalists. And I was one of 21 journalists from across the world that attended the program. And it's basically to visit the US and look at study their culture, their society, and the media as well. And we also exchanged our own experiences in terms of our media, our governance systems, and those sort of things. And so I decided that the program was for 21 days, about 21 days. And so I decided that before I left Freetown, I decided that I write to our partners, NED, National Endowment for Democracy, National Democratic Institute, Committee for the Protection of Journalists, so that I would stay 1 week or 2 weeks after the program to have meetings with them, to update them about the activities of the media here, the media environment, ahead of the elections. So that was basically what we did. And I'm happy that we were able to accomplish those meetings. They accepted the request. And so after the program, after the IVLP program, I met with them in Washington. And the engagements were fruitful because they are basically focused on the press freedom in Sierra Leone, ahead of the elections, preparations for the media, and democracy, and also the elections, and how they also will contribute to helping the media perform its role during these elections.
The media is expanding. You have
very much
Sierra Leoneans in the diaspora as well, operating, media or online media that are catering for Sierra Leoneans here and there in the diaspora, and especially when they relates to the media in Sierra Leone, they see themselves as members of the media fraternity here. How is Sludge, getting those people on board, perhaps to get them to understand, to practice through the Sludge code, the IMC code, and all of that?
Well, interestingly, I also had meetings with a cross-section of the journalists in the diaspora, especially in the US. And that is one of the things that I said to them. I said, if you are, because some of them were members of Sludge before they went to the US, but they've lost touch with the association. I said, okay, you still have to come back, and then we'll look at your backlog in terms of areas for membership, and we'll make a payment plan, and then you'll pay by installment. And for those who have not been members of Sludge, it is a huge opportunity for you to become members of SLAD, because once you become members of SLAD, then you are part of the profession and you are part of the, you are guided by codes and the IMC media code of practice as well. And so that is what I told them: come to SLAD, be a member. Be part
So
of the
it's SLAD
association.
recognizing its members in the diaspora as a legitimate body as well.
No, not as a body. They should be part of SLAD. That's what I said. It doesn't matter whether it doesn't matter whether you are in Freetown or whether you're out of the country. As long as you are registered as a member, then you are part of the association, and then you participate. Even now we do virtual programs.
Okay.
So yes, yeah.
So they even when they are out, they still considered as members of SLAD and not functioning in isolation.
No, it's when they have if they want to have an organization for themselves outside of here, that is another issue altogether. But SLAD is a membership organization. It's a professional membership organization. So you can be out there and still become a member of SLAD. We interview you online as long as you go through the procedures. And the committee responsible for recruiting you will recommend to us that this person has fulfilled the criteria, and we are recommending that you admit them into SLAD. Then they will interview you. Yes, you have a right to become a member of SLAD. It's voluntary. We don't force you to become a member of SLAD, but we encourage you. As long as you've started creating content and you're putting out there for people to consume, then it will be good for us to have you in our fold so that you are guided by the codes.
Before July comes in quickly, I'll want to ask, you know, your opinion. You've seen it the different way. You've practiced for a very long time now, and you've traveled around. You've been to the US as well to see how the media operates. What's the take home? What is it that you bring into us here to possibly learn from or add value to?
The trip was an eye opener for me, because the American media is very diverse in a lot of ways, and it differs from state to state. And so we see that the kind of challenges that we are facing here are more or less the same challenges they are also facing. There's a general lack of distrust in the legacy media. People don't trust the media as much as they did before, and so they've also sensed that. But now they are working and determined to see how they can reinvent journalism again, to focus on the truth, so that journalism becomes truthful, a truthful profession, where people will have more access to reliable information, credible information. And so now they are focusing on community journalism. That is where the communities where the media operates, they focus on those communities to let them be part of the news, as always. They are represented in the news always. And then they are able to balance it with the national news as well. And so we also see that the ability to also adapt with technology, because technology is going very fast, and they are also facing challenges of disinformation, fake news, and they're grappling with that. But they are making genuine effort to see how they can overcome all of those challenges. So those are some of the biggest takeaways from me and community here. Yes.
You know, Nazgala, let's speak about the elephant in the room, social media bloggers. You know, we cannot deny that they are part of, they're part of the problem in terms of malicious content, especially heading towards, you know, the elections. And people are always, you know, eager, yes, to consume, you know, wrong information. And in the process of retraction, you might not have the same audience you had before. So what's in line in those particular areas?
Well, that is the challenge we are facing. What social media has done for us, that is not positive, is that they have created many access for the public to have access to unreliable information. So that's the problem. Now people have access to all of those outlets, social media, and so they don't have they don't have less access to reliable sources of information where they can go to verify those claims or cross-check those claims. That is the biggest challenge. Well, like we said, we are encouraging all of them to become part of for the bloggers. We had a session with them last year, and one of our recommendations to them under the Internews project was to have them have an association or an organization that SLAD can arrange for them, so that they are guided by rules and regulations. Because freedom of expression goes with responsibility. That is what we always tell them. But for people who create now, social media has given everybody the opportunity to create content for themselves and put it out there, and they don't normally when putting those content together, they normally consider the impact it will have on society. So there's a big difference. So we need a lot of public education to ensure that they are responsible. But again, we have people who are using them to put out those misinformation and fake news and those personality attacks. They are paid to do that, and that's how they are surviving. And so that is a huge problem for us as we go into the elections.
And as well, Lambana made mention of those in the diaspora, and in an era where get to rely a lot of, well, some sets of people get to rely a lot of information from these, diasporans. They hope to get messages from them. What would you have to say to them just to maintain the sanity of Sierra Leoneans? We're not into elections, to cause mayhem.
I have been appealing to them. The problem we have with them, there are so many platforms. Everybody wants to have a platform to have discussion programs on Facebook and Twitter, talking about issues back home here. And when they are out there and they have little knowledge about those issues, they don't go in depth, and they are mostly opinions, politically motivated opinions, and people have access to them to consume them, and they make decisions from those programs, and they are not covered by the IMC. The regulations that we have here don't cover them because they are operating outside, but they are operating outlets that are focused on serving an audience. So that's the challenge we have. So what I've been telling them, whatever you're doing, make sure you do it professionally, because you should not be out there and you're doing programs that have negative impact on our society here. That is not patriotic, definitely. We just keep to appeal to them, but most of them are politically motivated. That's their agenda. And
the last time you were speaking of a situation room which would manage the flow of information, specifically on that, how would you work with other bodies in terms of sending the right information?
Yes, that is one of the aspects that we're doing to position the media to be able to combat disinformation, fake news, malinformation, all the mal content that we're talking about, including hate speech. And that one is informed by a study that was done on the information environment in Sierra Leone. The NDI came here late last year, and we had discussions, and we told them that for these coming elections, we have found out that disinformation and hate speech are part of the challenges that we'll be facing. And so they want to rely on facts. And so they came with a team to do an assessment. They met with SLAG, they met with other media stakeholders, they met with the government agencies, they met with women groups, they met with youth groups, everybody. And they went back and did a report and said, so the key findings of that report is that one, that the information environment in Sierra Leone is manipulated online and offline. That is one. Two, they also said that hate speech was largely responsible for all these violent incidents that we've had in the country, from the Tombo incident, the Losar incident, to the McKinney incident, and to the latest one, which was the McKinney and which was the August 10 riots, claiming lives of innocent individuals, police officers, as well as destruction of public property. And then the other one was that information, gendered disinformation was mainly targeted at women, especially women in public life and women journalists like you. And they made several recommendations. One, SLAG should engage for these elections on combating disinformation. They also found out that most of the disinformation that is going on online is being transported offline by people who are trusted voices, people who are influencers in local communities. So that's how they do it. And they also recommended that SLAG should set up those kind of structures to counter that. So that's why we had this super newsroom. And the other one was that we should also focus on empowering women during this election, supporting women, making sure that women are represented in the media, and supporting them to be able to articulate their issues, their platforms for the elections. And the other one was to ensure that SLAG network and engage with other organizations that are engaged in fact-checking or trying to ensure that people have more access to credible information during the elections. And the other one also was to engage with Meta, that is Facebook and Twitter and WhatsApp, which are mostly the most common platforms that are used here, so that we're able to escalate some of the concerns that we have during the elections, so that they also take action in terms of helping us to ensure that those problematic content do not get through to the bigger space and influence the judgment of the public. And so the Super Newsroom, we have two programs. One is with the National Democratic Institute. We have a Super Newsroom here in Sludge, and we have super newsrooms in each of the districts where we have the Sludge regional offices. We have McKinney in the north, Kenema in the east, Bo in the south, and northwest in Poloko. And so for Freetown, we have 3 fact checkers and 2 supervisors. And for the north, we have 1 supervisor and 1 fact checkers. They've just gone through 2 days training yesterday, on Tuesday and Wednesday, and on the basic knowledge of checking the tools and those sort of things. And so that they will start work today. And so they will basically be doing social media monitoring, looking for content around the elections that are problematic, and then they will verify those ones, and then we'll share in all our platforms, large platforms, WhatsApp groups, WhatsApp forums, Facebook, and Twitter, and our website as well. Then we have the UNDP program, which is basically the I-Verified platform. That one is dedicated to just a platform, and in one Facebook page called the Sludge I-Verify Facebook page. So they're also basically going to do this. They also do the same. They started 2 months ago, about 2 months ago now, and they've done fantastically well. Although they have 1 or 2 problems, but that is good. And so that is what we are doing, so that we position, we provide the public reliable sources or reliable sources where they can go to verify claims. And because for the I-Verify platform, it is interactive. You can go there and then you slot in some information that you've received and you want to cross-check and ask them to cross-check it for you. They will do that for you and then get back to you and say, no, this is the correct information. This is false. This is correct. So that is what we are doing. So in these elections, the citizens have to have increased access to credible information. Otherwise,
It's about
the
trust
judgment,
as
yes,
well. It's issue about trust. We're at an era where perhaps the public is losing trust on the mainstream media, and either they're creating their own content or relying on people who speak what they want to hear, when naturally the mainstream media could not speak those issues.
When you say the public, you should be very, very careful when you call the public right now. In what I'm seeing right now, in the civic space that we have right now, the people who occupy these spaces are mostly politicians. They're mostly political supporters. Everybody that is making a comment, most of the people that are making comment now on social media who have access to use it and use it, they are politically motivated. They are coming, you know, their interests as they put out information, you know where they're coming from. So there is no space. There is very limited space for the ordinary voice, the ordinary Sierra Leonean.
And they've captured that space.
Yes, exactly. They've captured the space. So that's why they say the space is small. No, the space is influenced by people who are politically motivated, who are doing everything for their party, promoting any kind of information, just support their party. And so that when the party comes to power, so that is the challenge that we have. So that's why we need to be strengthening the legacy media. That is what we are doing right now.
How do we build trust? It's about trust issues. Yes. Well, like, I'm sure it's not unique with Sierra Leone.
Yes,
globally.
Yes, that's why I said there's a general lack of trust in the legacy media. Yes,
so
that's what we're
how
trying to do.
does the mainstream media build that? You know, to get the people to understand that, you know, this person will be giving you what you want to hear because he's politically motivated. But what the mainstream media is giving you, it's actually what is factual, what you should listen to.
Well, exactly. So I forgot to mention about the IRM platform. That is a trusted platform. When in elections, especially for the past 5 elections that we had, the IRM platform is a trusted platform. And so that is also one aspect that we're using. Not just communicating on social, because we know only about 32% of people in Sierra Leone have access to internet. And so the bulk of the population rely on radio. So radio is that a platform we're also using. So once they're verified, they're also transported to the local radio networks to be able to transmit them in the local languages that the people understand. It's a challenge, no. It definitely is a challenge, and that is what we are trying to do, to build the reputation of Sludge as an independent source of credible information so that people have access there. And definitely we will get there in the elections.
With the current end of the elections, you know, there are mainstream media institution or journalists who are being accused as well of, you know, partaking in propagating or amplifying its speech. There have been issues with radio stations, newspapers as well. How does Sludge, you know, regulate or help in regulating the members or addressing those concerns as well? Because radio is still popular, people still read, and you have journalists, if they say things, people have the tendency to believe as well.
Yes, for that one, that challenge we have basically with community radio stations. That is why there are training programs going on for that to address that aspect of it. Yes, but like you said, Lamara, that is a challenge we also have. The fact that most of our colleagues now have identified themselves with the political parties. And so they give the public a little option to have to know who to believe or where to go to get information. And that is a challenge. This is something that we raised in the meetings that I had with the international partners, especially CPG, when it comes to their safety and security. Because once you identify with the political party and you're at the forefront of propagating their ideologies and their issues and defending them publicly, then you have exposed yourself to the opposition party or to the other party, and you become a target because they don't consider you anymore as a journalist. But we also have to consider that they have a right to support a political party. Exactly. No journalist, every journalist have, yeah, it's your right. We can't tell you don't support the political party. But what we have been saying over and over and in, do it professionally. Do it professionally. Because you're supporting APC or you're supporting SFP, that doesn't mean that you should put out fake news or misinformation or disinformation or hate speech to discredit APC or SFP or their candidates. Just promote your party's ideology and let the public judge. So once the public know that you are coming from this angle, they know that whatever comes there is bias in favor of the party you're supporting or the candidate you're supporting. So those are the things we're trying to tell them. We have a slash code of ethics. The IMC has just got 2 regulations on print and electronics media and elections coverage. So once we abide by those guidelines, then definitely you can still support your party and be a professional. But we still struggling with that. But that is what it is. We have to live with it. Exactly.
As a media practitioner over the years, the rise of social media has taken its toll. And, as Lamrana made mention again, the trust, excuse me, that was once placed on the mainstream media or the grip we had, is slowly leaving our hands.
No longer there, yes.
So particularly to social media, what would you have to say, in terms of institutions going through social media to tackle the problem before it goes out of hand, because it's as if it's more of a reactive approach rather than a proactive one.
Well, I think journalists also professional journalists need to. That's why we're always talking about public interest media, public interest journalism, professional journalism, independent journalism. That is one aspect that we are trying to push forward, so that we have more young journalists who are coming up to aspire to become and not to become political journalists. And so we are the space is for everybody, but we are leaving it. We are not taking advantage of that space anymore. We are very slow in terms of getting there and making our presence felt as professionals, so that we limit the space for those who want to manipulate information. So that is what we want to do. Yes, but I think professional organizations they have professional people who will advise them on media, and I don't think they will rely on social media to counter or to do crisis journalism when there is crisis for their affecting their institutions. They have to go through the legacy media, because that's where you get the professionals, and they will develop for you because every organization has to have a communication strategy. It has to be in space. That is what informs your actions. You don't just react. You have already planned that. Say, if this thing happens, this is what I will do to put out the information or to ensure that I react. So once you have those things in place, it's very easy for you. Just go to the template and look at it. This is my plan. And this has happened. What do we do? And then you know what to do. Yes, but there should be that kind of engagement with the right professionals to ensure that you put out correct information out there.
On the other hand, a lot of people who get this information that are malicious, again, still what I'm asking is that they rely on social media to have this information. So what would you have to say to them in terms of
they rely on it to
apart
get
from the institutions
to get this information?
Yeah, this information on social media.
The institutions they rely on to get.
What I'm asking is that the audience, Sierra Leonean youths generally, let's term them youths, rely on social media, to get wrong information that they act on, that again cause chaos in society. So what would you have to say to them who are always reactive when it comes to
they don't rely on it for disinformation. They rely for information. They think that is information.
Yeah.
It's true information. That's what they do. That's why we need public education. We need media literacy, so that the public understands how professional journalists produce news and disseminate it, and also how they, as the public, consume news. So once they know those basic knowledge about how to cross-check information when you receive it, and what are the basic skills that you should know to show that the source of this of this information is skeptical. Let me check again and check again before I share. Then we've gone halfway in solving the problem. Yes, that's what it's all about public education and media literacy, because the public doesn't seem to understand the way the media works. So whatever they see on social media is news, and that's how they interpret it. And so we need to embark more on that, especially for these elections. Not just us large, but every media has a responsibility to also have that responsibility, and also political parties and civil society organizations. That is their role. And we all should be able to condemn hate speech when we see it and when it happens. Every day we need to do that for this election, because it happens every day. Every day there are chunks and chunks of audios from people, yes, that have been put out on social media and memos. Most of them every day. Most of them are misleading, and they are bad content for the public, and they just promote divisiveness and chaos. And so we all should be able to condemn all of those things, especially coming from the political parties.
So how is large, perhaps working with other stakeholders also gets the media houses to understand how to, target their audience? Because if we're just broadcasting here and this way, and the people who share hate speech targets those on WhatsApp, and it's easily shared there, it can be easily downloaded, and they listen to it and understand what they're saying, rather than understanding what perhaps will be putting out, and they can easily access Facebook and all of that. How do we get to segment our audience and target the audience as well? Those people who are vulnerable, to consuming those information.
Well, I think we are now playing catching up, because they are far ahead of us. Because the amount of people who listen to Adebayo it's unimaginable. The people who listen to him and take his information as true, when it's basically it's basically not. It's true. So once you understand the channels or how the network works, then we also need to use that channel. That is what we're doing. We're trying to do with the disinformation, combating disinformation. Because once the information comes on social media, there are people who package that information and they put it into bits, and then they send it to the communities. And then there are people here who are agents who now disseminate it by word of mouth. So we also need to be creative and try to use those same channels to ensure that people have access to the information, not just relying on just the traditional media. We have a program here, and then we think that we've reached Salone. That's why we're using the IRN platform to ensure that we also have other local community groups that are also involved in spreading the information by word of mouth. So that is basically what we should do. Use the same channels and counter the information.
We'll come to talk
but again, there is another aspect. That is, if we do that, then we are always reactive. And, we are always debunking. And they will be always putting out manipulated content, and we are just reactive.
Yeah.
We need to pre-bunk. When we do pre-bunk, that is, we have to have access to the information before them. And that is the challenge now. So for the EMBs now, we need to have, with ECSL, with PPRC, with the police, we need to have access to the information beforehand. When we get the information, we put it out there. Then when they manipulate now, we are the first ones that have already put out the information. People have the correct information. So that is
earlier you were talking about bloggers with July, and you mentioned how some of them are being used by people to give them information.
Yes, exactly.
It's coming to a point where even within government, you see information, sensitive government information online from certain blogger or certain citizen journalists. You have a system where politicians, those in power, those out,
those are politicians as well,
are relying on citizen journalists and the mainstream media. How can we address this?
That is sad. That is sad. I don't know how that came about. That is sad. But yes, it's so. Is
it about? She was asking. Is it about us losing the grip and the space being open for everyone?
Well, it's not true. I think it's about the mindset of the Sierra Leonean. It's about the mindset of the Sierra Leonean. You know, people like to see people fall, and they like to see this kind of information, negative information about people who have been up there, who have fought hard to get up there. So they like to see negative things about you, and so they are. It's about what pleases them or what interests them, and so that's what the bloggers have taken advantage of, because that's the mindset of the Sierra Leonean. So that is what we need to change: public education, media literacy, so that they understand how the media works and what the impact of information that they consume and how they consume it. So we need to look at that. I think there's a lot of talent for us.
I want to ask
Yes,
as well
but we
quickly.
need to encourage the bloggers. We need to ensure
Exactly.
that
Is
the
it about
bloggers-
embracing
yes,
them?
yes, like, that's what I told them. Get yourself into associations, formal associations, so that you are guided by rules and regulations. But once you operate without rules and regulations, then it's very difficult for you to be controlled. And so you do things that you know, but they can be held under the cyber law, because that is essentially what the cyber law is for. Criminalizes hate speech and those personality attacks without fact. You just wake up one day and see somebody's face and with some alarming allegations of sexual abuse and those sort of things. And then you go scot free again. So that's exactly. And when they apply the cyber law, people begin to cry, and yeah, it's freedom of speech. No, there's a line. And so once they understand that, then I think that will be solving the problem. Yes, but that is exactly what the cyber law was trying to achieve. Yeah.
You spoke about.
Yes. So we need to encourage. We need to continue to encourage them to be. I think government needs to do that as well. The Ministry of Information need to do that so that they are guided by rules and regulations. That's how we'll be able to.
You spoke about community radio
stations.
Yes. Stations. You know, we've had cases where politicians will take advantage of community radio stations. If they are the most popular in those places, they can go and sit and say what they want to say.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yes.
How is Sludge working with the IMC and other partners to manage this, especially at this time during this election?
Yes, that is one dangerous weapon that we have left unchecked for long. These microphones are up there in local communities, and people just go behind them. People with little knowledge about journalism and about the impact of information on communities. They just go behind the mic and say all kind of things. Some people just go there. They have monologue programs. They just talk, accuse people every day. Yeah, but I think the IMC have started doing. They've been around the country trying to engage them. The MRTG also. We also have a program for that. And the problem with them, the problem with the community radio station is that they are poor. They lack resources. They are poorly managed as well, and they are supposed to be supervised by boards that are mainly constituted within the local community, teachers, parents, and the religious leaders, the traditional leaders. They all form part of the board, and they should be able to provide that oversight to ensure that the station is used to promote the interest of the community, and they also should be responsible to mobilize resources to ensure that the station is on air. And we've been appealing to government to ensure that they provide subvention for those stations so that whether they have business or not, because they are not supposed to do business because they are community radio stations, they're not commercial radio stations, but to ensure that they are on air for a certain period of time to provide information for the public. And I think government also needs to utilize those community radio stations. Whenever government has a program, a national program, and they want to communicate, you don't just go and sit on SLBC or AYV and then put out a broadcast and then you share it on social media and believe that you reach the people. No, there is SLBC. SLBC has all the channels, and so some of those things they need to also relate them to the community radio stations in the language that the people understand. This is what the government has said. This is what the government is doing. This is what the government is going to do, so that they understand also.
So
but that is not happening. Yeah, but that is not happening. That is what is not happening right now. And so we encourage government to do that, because when you communicate to the list. We've been to areas under the August 10 investigation committee. We've been to places where people said they've never heard from the government. Yes, in communities, so they don't know when last they heard from the government, because government always speaks through some of the legacy media that are only accessible to people who have access to TV, who have access to smartphones and internet, but they don't communicate to the local community radio stations. These are powerful tools, because the bulk of the population are in the provinces, in the rural areas, and they depend on radio. So largely the population depend on radio for their information, and so government needs to utilize those programs. That is why we're using the IRM platform, although that one also is not as comprehensive as we want it to be because of resources. But yeah, the impact is basically helpful.
You know, as you were saying earlier, there's this gap. However, let's talk about information overload. You know, that's also a problem. Back in 2018, I had the honor to monitor some elections, and both parties were saying they had won the election in a particular constituency. And it was, a kind of chaotic situation that both parties were claiming winning. And then they had the media station saying the right thing. They had them saying the other thing. So, in terms of information overload, what would you have to say to that?
Well, yes, there has to be a place, or there has to be a source where people can verify that. That is the essence. Because if you claim that you've won and you also claim that you've won, there should be a place where the people should go and say who has won. So that's why the platform is. That's why the IAM platform is there. Because that's what they do every elections, to ensure that people, when you want to verify election results, when you want to ensure that you have the correct result, you listen to the IRM platform. Because that is the most credible platform we have in terms of information. But definitely yes. But if you listen to other avenues, definitely every party will claim that they've won here, they've won there, and so what we should do is to ensure that people make sure that they know that I can go there and verify this claim, and I will get the right claim. The right answer. Yes. So we need to make them have avenues where they will go to verify some of those claims and get the correct information.
The I-Verify platform that you spoke about earlier, what's the work it will be doing with this election directly for the public? How are you popularizing it for the public to know that if we see this, there should be a platform that I should go to verify this information, whether it's factual or not?
I don't know whether you've started playing our promo for the song, the theme song. There's a theme song that we've already done.
Yes.
It's on radio right now, and it should also be on TV.
On TV.
Yes, and we're basically telling people that when you see it, you have to cross-check it. You have to fact-check it. The I-Verify platform, that is the platform that you should go to check it. If you have content that you want to verify, go to the I-Verify platform. You can do it on because I know people, not all of us have access to the platform or internet to have access and affordability and power as well. But there is radio. You can also, that's why the IRN platform. I think IRN is a hub for all of this program, and so you can also access IRN, call on the radio and ask them to verify this claim for you. They will send it to the fact checkers and they fact check it. So
it's just online or online and offline?
Online and offline. Online and offline. That's why we have the radio platform as well. Yes, and I think they also have a WhatsApp. They're also trying to establish a WhatsApp group and some local numbers where people can call or send text messages. Yes, if they have any doubts about any information that they have. Yes, and then they will send it to the fact checker.
Is the verification just around the election statement, or it's generally about everything?
We are reviewing as we go. We are reviewing as we go along. Right now, I see that they are reviewing everything related to the elections, but then we're not able to do that because that will be a huge task for us because there is so much information coming out around the elections. But I think we need to prioritize what exactly on those information that have the potential to undermine the credibility of the elections, or that will undermine the peace and stability of our nation. Those are the things that they will be fact checking, and also statements of facts about from politicians, statements that are about percentages of data and those sort of things. These are things that they will also fact check to ensure that people have the correct information about development that have taken place or no development that has taken place.
Okay. There's this issue about safety and the elections for journalists. The last election, unfortunately, we had a case. There was this case of journalists who were beaten, and one of them died. That matter was taken to court and all of that. In terms of safety and the role of the security sector and journalists in this election, what is SLAG doing to ensure that journalists are safe as they do their work?
Okay, for that incident that you mentioned, I think we need to make the public understand that the journalist died. The court has proven that the journalist did not die because of the beating that he got from the elections. Let's get that clear. Okay. Yes, that is a concern for us for every elections. We know we always clash. There is always clash with the police. But I've always said that those clashes always come about because as a result of the police becoming partisan or the journalists becoming partisan. Once you do that in elections, you're bound to clash. There are bound to be clashes, and then definitely. And so this is something that we've been trying to address If you remember, we signed the MOU with the police about 2 years ago, and that is to cooperate and to ensure that they understand the work that we do. We also understand the work that they do. And we support them, provide security. They also support us to provide information for the public. But we've gone beyond that. Under the MRCD platform, we've established we've developed a policy, a framework and policy on the safety and security of journalists in Sierra Leone. We've gone beyond to also establish a national coordinating committee for the protection, for the safety and security of journalists in Sierra Leone. We've done that as well. These are all policies that are in place. There are things that we can develop and get Parliament to legislate so that it becomes the responsibility of everybody, not just SLAG, but also all the other structures, the police, the judiciary, the ONS, the traditional leaders and religious leaders to also take it as their responsibility to protect journalists. When we are in the US, we went to the CPG office in New York, and this is something that we put to them. We asked them to give us some guidelines on how we ensure the safety and security of journalists, not just for SLAG, but also for even media houses. What policies you put in place to ensure before you send out your reporters to cover the elections, you brief them on what security briefing you give them to ensure that they know what to do when they go out there to assess the risk, and also ensure that their self-preservation is key. These are things we put in place. Before we left here, before I left for the US, we had the training. The police initiated the training of their local commanders and journalists as well. That happened in Kintom, where they took us through their protocols in conducting or providing security for elections, and we also show them what we do during the elections in terms of getting the information. And then yes, so there is some cooperation going on. It will not be perfect. It definitely there are bound to be some clashes, but we want to minimize those clashes. And so once we understand those things and we commit ourselves to do that, and make sure that our journalists, when you go to cover the elections, the first point of contact is the security people. Go there and tell them and identify yourself that you are a journalist, you're working for this media institution, and I will be covering this polling center. And then once you establish that relationship with them, then I'm sure they will be comfortable to but if they see you performing like you are a politician, and definitely you will be involved in some kind of
as we round up,
altercation.
let's round up on the note of ethics in journalism and again code of conduct. What would you have to say to journalists at this point there, where the Part 5 of the criminal libel law has been abolished, the responsibility on each and every journalist?
Yeah, I've said that there is no time now in the history of the media when journalism is important than now. Very important. Truthful journalism, professional journalism, independent journalism, public interest journalism than now, because now the public is kind of being in a situation where they are confused because they are exposed to so many avenues, so many sources of information. Most of them the majority of them are not credible, and so they don't know what to do. And so, as a journalist, you have a mission. Your mission is to do public interest journalism, and that aspect of being impartial and sometimes you have to be partial in favor of a certain group of people, like women and in minority groups and those sort of things. And so, yeah, there are times that you can do that just to ensure that you do the right thing, because some people are very powerless, and if the media doesn't help them, then they won't get through. And so, codes, ethics, and the guidelines to be a professional journalist when you're covering elections, they're very important. And once you abide by those rules, then you don't get into trouble. You don't get into clash with the police. You don't get into clash with security forces, and you don't get into clash with the law.
Okay.
So that is what we're telling them: abide by the code of ethics. Adhere to the code of ethics. Adhere to the IMC code of practice. The new regulations that they put on elections coverage. And once you do that, then you can still be a professional, cover the elections professionally. Then you don't have trouble.
Finally, Salione's position on the performance of the media in the world. There's been this back and forth on its discussion about it. We've repealed the libel law, but we're still ranked that way. And there's this talk about the cyber law as well. What's his large position on that?
Well, I'm sure you read my statement on World Press Freedom Day. Yes, I made it clear. Okay, we don't have any journalists in jail. That is good for us. We don't have any journalists detained. We've had, I've not had, since the repeal of the criminal libel law, I've not had any journalists arrested or arbitrarily and detained as it used to happen before. So those are progress. So the only um, challenge we have is with the cyber law. And those are the things that because we also contributed to the enactment of that law for good reasons. Because we know that the cyber law, countries should have cyber law to protect the cyberspace, virtual crimes, money laundering, illicit financing, terrorism, and those sort of things. And we made it clear that we want this law, but we want it to not have the potential to undermine fundamental rights of the people, free expression and and free media. And so that is the concern we have. It is in terms of the application of the law.
Okay.
How do we apply the law? Do we apply it to clamp down on free speech or free media? So that is the issue we have, and that is what we are guarding against. So that when they implement the law, apply the law, let it be basically because it criminalizes hate speech, and we don't like hate speech. No, as large, we don't want people to get involved with hate speech, and so the cyber law criminalizes that one. And so if you're engaged in hate speech, then the cyber law can hold you responsible. So those ones, they are out of our own protection as well.
Thank you very much for speaking to us this morning. Ahmed Said Nasala, President of the Salone Association of Journalists. We've been talking about the role of the media in the elections, fighting fake news, disinformation, and misinformation on social media as well. We'll continue this conversation definitely as we move on to the election. This is Wake Up Sierra Leone. We take a quick break. When we come back, we go into the second segment of the show as we'll be looking at manifestos and the elections. Keep watching.
And in our top stories this morning, yesterday, the capital Freetown witnessed heavy rains and storms in the morning, which flooded some communities, leading to the collapse of a perimeter fence at the east end of Freetown. So far, the National Disaster Management Agency has confirmed the deaths of 6 people, while 2 were critically injured.
Also received reports of a collapsed fence at Bankole community, Moab, and the collapsed fence actually fell on the 5 apartments, that were beneath the fence and killing 6 people. Immediately after which, we actually sent in our team to actually conduct an assessment. And the assessment reports indicate that indeed 6 people lost their lives, in that particular incident. And there are 2, people that are in critical condition. So what the NDMA, has done is to actually work with our partners to ensure that we provide medical, treatment for those 2 that are critically injured.
The story, the Chief Electoral Commissioner and Chairman of the Electoral Commission for Sierra Leone ECSL, Mohamed Kone, has said that they will be using both electronics and manual counting for the June 24 multi-elections. He revealed this during the Election Steering Committee update meeting at Bintumani Conference Hall in Freetown.
We are now working on the result management system, procurement of ballot papers, and then the campaign management. We are going to engage the political parties to agree on the schedule for their campaign, and then training of our staff, deployment of logistics, the sensitive and non-sensitive, in terms of the management of the results. We are going to utilize both electronics as well as the manual. The results are counted at the polling station level and then collated at the regional office by districts, and then the total regional results are submitted to me as the national returning officer for tally, and then come out with the final results.
The Regional Chief Operations Officer of Afrexim Bank, Arulfon, West Africa, Eric Intong, has pleaded their commitment to disburse $1 billion United States dollars by next year to support the economic development to trade finance in Sierra Leone. He was speaking at the closing of a two-day Sierra Leone Trade Roadshow in Freetown on the sustain the inter-African trade drive, navigating the last mile.
We thought that this year will also give us another opportunity to read new transactions of at least another 350 million US dollars, so that between last year, this year, and next year, we should be targeting a total amount of 1 billion US dollars to be considered in disbursements to support economic development through trade finance and trade enabling transactions, promote and finance their businesses, to create employment, to fight poverty, to support economic development and transformation, so that our country, Sierra Leone, and of course the continent as a whole, will own its own economic.
All right, that's all we have in our top stories this morning. Back to Amadou and Zulai in our main studios.
Many thanks, David Wemi Wilson, for the news summary. Now, in our final segment, as Sierra Leone's general elections draw closer, all political parties are urged to launch their manifestos as soon as possible so that voters can make informed decisions on elections day. Well, this morning, to take a closer look at the implications of the situation for the upcoming elections, in the studio, we have Andrew Lavali, who's the Executive Director, IGR, and Marcela Samba Sisse, who's the Executive Director again, CGG. Good morning, gentlemen. Good morning, Marcela. Thank you for joining us this morning. You know, a few days ago, we were speaking to political analysts as well. And the word he used was that he said this na fitiai in a local parlance, that up to this day, we have 46 days to the elections now, and we do not have, you know, the manifestos on which citizens can make informed decisions. Let me start with you. Do you still agree with him that this na fitiai?
Well, I will say yes and no.
Okay.
In the no part is how many citizens actually look at manifesto. What we are trying to do is to make sure manifestos are relevant in our body politics. So we have a situation where we have much of ethno-regional balloting rather than policy-based voting. So what we've been doing over the past years, I mean, civil society in general, is to make election meaningful by letting Sierra Leoneans understand the meaning of voting, how voting is important for their lives, how you have to vote for water, you have to vote for the economy, you have to vote for youth employment. You cannot put, you know, Mendes in one batch, say vote green, you put Chimneys in one group and they say vote red. It will never take us forward. So on that grounds, I will say no. On the grounds of people who believe, and that's the critical mass of citizens who believe that manifestos really are important to make informed decisions. As a matter of fact, if you don't have a manifesto, what do you campaign on? So you'll be trying to pre on some primordial, sentiments of citizens. So you have populism, you have fake news bandied around, you have hollow statements bandied around in the absence of manifestos. So the purpose of the manifesto, it actually gives a broad framework of a party's platform. How do you intend to take the country forward? Because election is really about, it's not, likely not about where do I stand in relation to power, the next person that is coming, but how do I benefit from services? How do we improve the delivery of institutions? So those are the decisions we always take after every 5 years in an election. So I would say yes or no in that regard.
As an assessment, Marcela, again, you would answer if this nafiti to our country, and then you have to speak to the issues of citizens being interested in the manifesto itself.
Want us to drop the conversation around citizens being interested. We want to live in a society where our leaders know better than the people and not the other way around. Because leadership presupposes direction. They are going to give us the direction for the next 5 years. There is a balance that says that when you fail to plan, you're actually planning to fail. There is no way somebody will be stepping up in this day and age. We all know what's happening in the world over, yet alone the real issues that are happening in Sierra Leone. As we see it, we see the manner in which our leons is plummeting, and how, for example, would somebody want to take power in a country of this nature without giving us a sound direction as to how we can revive, our currency, for example. There are a number of issues that citizens are waiting for to hear. So in actual fact, if we say citizens are not voting on policies, citizens are not voting on issues, so our politicians all of a sudden become complacent and we are moving into elections without manifesto, we've totally missed the point as a country. It's not even part of our political culture. Our democratic culture since renewal in 1996 have shown tremendous support for manifestos, meaning that we need a plan. And you see, citizens' expectation. Let me tell you, the whole euphoria that is happening. Yes, we have a critical mass who are green already in Sierra Leone, but we have an informed few who really want to wait to hear. And it's that informed few that make the decision. But the critical mass who really vote on ethnic lines, after the euphoria, they begin to say, what's happening? And that's why we need good leadership, because at the end of the day, yes, they would love their political party, but they have to live in the next 5 years. The Institute of Governance Reform led the campaign on My Vote, My Life. It is our life for the next 5 years. We are going to hand over a social contract in the hands of politicians. What do you have for us? I think we yesterday I mentioned on a platform similar to this, I said we are demanding the manifestos. We really demanding the manifestos. Because how, for example, would you put forward a campaign team without having a manifesto? That's where we start missing it, because the campaign team must mirror what's in the content of your manifesto. Let's take, for example, if a political leader has seen the need to address issues regarding healthcare, because Sierra Leoneans are dying of disease that are otherwise curable. So we want to ensure that we really revive our healthcare system. So when we begin to see the people in the campaign team, the lineup that the political leaders put forward, then we begin to mirror that, yes, this makes sense. We really know this as a medical professional. We really know this as a health professional or community medic that has done tremendous success even in difficult communities. And then we begin to make sense as to how such issues will be addressed. But more importantly, and that's the last point I will want to mention in this round, how, for example, will they get the money to finance the plan? Because our pattern of revenue generation is so limited. If it's not everything is about extraction and collection. So it's not about collecting revenue at Watiki, it's about mining that is not mining without value addition, agriculture without value addition. So how would you get the money? Because say, for example, if we want to ensure that these plans, let me take the new direction, 2018 to 2023, the new direction has foremost as its flagship education. 21% of the budget was taken. It means that government only has 79% of the national budget to service other demands. And so that 79% to service all the demands, it's a really big task. It's not enough. In reality, it's not enough. So the detriment of other sectors. So where is the money going to come from? And I think in the coming days, our political leaders, thankfully, the Electoral Commission for Sierra Leone has put out a notice to say provisionally 30 of them has gone through the nomination process. So we are expecting to see what the plans are for Sierra Leoneans in the next 5 years.
You know, it was on Monday we were speaking to Lucene Kalon from the PPRC, and he made mention that, you know, when the nomination process was ongoing together with the ECSL, of course, there were political parties, well, those who want to be president, hopefully one day, who could not even speak English. And it bothers me that, we have to sit here and demand a manifesto from somebody who is a political aspirant. And again, simple English was not been able to communicate at at ECSL. What do you have to say to political parties who get to nominate even people who we just have to say it, we do not see much of them when we even look at them?
You see, I really don't want to use English as the basis
Okay.
for knowledge creation. But to be honest with you, that's a language of instruction.
Yeah.
And that is the language in which policies are formed. And so it's really important. But that's the conversation we are having. Because somebody says to me, one of the political leaders anyway, Masala, you've been in this process for too long. You know that we'll give the manifestos anyway. But the holy thing is that, and we need to point out, the question you just asked, when you are identifying people to run, the political party itself must have a manifesto, because you are saying, among all of us in this political party, we believe X, Y, and Z will be able to deliver and lead on this mission. So how did you send them for nomination anyway? So the political party manifesto presupposes that it should be an embodiment of the political party ideology. That's a problem too, because our parties are not ideologically based in Sierra Leone. And so until we begin to get this conversation, it's important, because we bring in candidates who would not have even read the Local Government Act. So they don't know the roles and responsibility expected of them. And so we have local councils who are supposed to be the development engine of the country. We find out that local councils have been very unproductive, because we need the most innovative and energetic minds in the communities to see how they could turn local opportunities, which the law calls home source revenue. They need to turn local opportunities into the realities for citizens in their communities. So you see why it is important that the thinking behind manifestos are very important.
Okay, let's come to, yes, you want to ask
quickly, yes, on the ground you're standing on. Should English, the art of communication, be a criteria, or should it be left out?
Interestingly, we have to be very pragmatic. The reality is, as Marcella said, English language should not count. But when you say it's a language of instruction, this goes way beyond that. In the day and age of governance, you have to understand complex policy documents that are written in English. So you just have to understand, not only understand English, but you need to have some level of education. The thing that schooling does, schooling teaches you to organize your thoughts in a certain way. So, for example, if you studied economics, if you studied chemistry, you organize your thoughts, your reasoning, your deduction in a certain way. So that's what education does. It doesn't mean that if you are uneducated, you are least important, you are not intelligent, but the tools that you need to manage a modern state requires education. I'm not just saying education, not mediocre education, very sound education. So it's not by mistake when people in England say you need to go to eating school before you become, before you take certain positions. If you go to the US, you need to go to a certain school at a certain grade level before you. So mediocrity, I don't know if it was Socrates, the philosopher king principle that says until philosophers become kings and kings becomes philosophers. So it will be difficult to govern the state. But to the question of manifesto, which is really key, I think we should pay tribute to the emergence of the Sierra Leonean civic public, especially in this day and age of social media. A lot of people are now waiting to see what is going to be in the manifestos. And so political parties, rightfully or wrongfully, I don't want to use the word timid. They know that manifestos will come under a barrage of scrutiny. So they actually need to get it right. And I spoke to a few of them on both camps, and they said, so why are you deleting your manifesto? Their response was, they're not declared campaign yet. But manifestos to me are just, they are the ritual part of campaigns. But with or without manifesto, you should be giving your policy sound bites anyway. So I have seen on social media, so some of the things Samora is saying about, this is what I want to do about education, this is what I want to do about the economy. We expect all of that to be rolled into one single document called a manifesto.
In 2018, as she mentioned, My Vote, My Life, led this, awareness about manifestos and what the people should demand for. And even IGR and other partners were asking political parties and politicians to commit themselves to declaring their assets.
Exactly.
In 2018, manifestos were only launched in February.
Yes.
Both main political parties launched their manifestos in February, and the elections were in March.
So the technical bit for them is, can I launch a manifesto when campaign has not been declared? But you're campaigning anyway.
Yeah.
So you can go.
So does that bring us back to the question about politicians, not taking the people serious? You're not believing that people vote on manifesto? Because I could imagine, we've seen the pages, how many pages of the New Direction manifesto and the APC manifesto the last time, and how many people have the time to go through it and understand what are the critical issues and what are the issues. You had to come out with biometer to gauge what are some of the promises and let the public understand. Is it that politicians or the political parties are really not thinking that manifestos play a part in people deciding on who they should vote for?
I sat in a class with some of the people in politics on both sides. They're very brilliant. They're very intelligent. They know that this thing, when we say people do not vote on policy, is a facade. On 2018, BO's biggest trump card was education, and it caught up with young people. Samora is talking quite a lot about fixing the economy. The economy, the leon is depreciating every day, and a lot of people want to see, what are your ideas about fixing it? So they know, they understand. So, but nowadays, even if you publish a 1 million-page document, it's very easy for people to just word check what is in there, what is in there within 2 hours, and they will tell you this is where they stand. Manifestos will come under critical scrutiny, serious scrutiny in 2023 compared to 2018. In 2018, when we launched the My Vote, My Life campaign, we did what we call the Knowledge, Attitude, and Practice survey. It was 45% of citizens. We know that there was a feel-good factor in that response of citizens who say, I vote on the basis of policy. But at the end of the election, after the presidential debate, when we asked people, did you vote? Did the debate convince you to vote? You had about 12% of citizens that said, yes, actually debate made me to make my decision. So we have people, as Marcella was saying, in fact, every day, the more people become disillusioned by both sides, that group becomes bigger. The more people become entrenched on one side, it becomes difficult for people to get, to convince either way. We just concluded a study where a lot of young people are saying that they believe that the party they win, the party they support, will fix their problem. So it's difficult to fix those, to change those views because they ardently believe in the party they support. But you have that critical mass. In the last election, it was about 30%.
Is it that we already know the problems? When you read the manifestos of both political parties, the words or names just change, but almost the same problem. Social issues, electricity, water, health, and all of it. Is it that we already know the problem and people, like you did with the Citizens Manifesto, specific things that people want the political parties to speak to?
So what we are now talking about is hollow statements in manifesto, something we call vague promise. So in the last biometer, we found out that about 40 of those promises out of 536 promises were vague. If you say, I want to depoliticize student union, what does that mean? How do you measure that, depoliticization of student union? So as opposed to saying, I want to increase youth employment from the current 20% to 50%, and we can actually count. I'll make sure my cabinet is diverse, and what that means, no one region will get above 30% of my next appointment, not just cabinet. So those are the things that we really want to see in manifestos. And that's why The Women's Manifesto is coming out today. The Citizens Manifesto was out 3 weeks ago, where people are making pointed demands. So we want to see how you can declare asset publication. I'm happy to hear Samora Kamara talking about that on BBC just a couple of days ago. But the reality is, you don't have to wait until you win election. What the Citizens Manifesto is basically saying, prove to us that you can provide ethical leadership. And by demonstrating that, it means even at the time you are being nominated, you have to show that you in for ethical leadership. So by declaring your assets.
Yeah.
And the asset declaration, with all due respect, one of the things we really need to push as a campaign is that policy of the ACC, that thing about the act, the way the act, the way it's couched, the asset declaration clause, it takes politicians off the hook.
And we had the ACC Act reviewed, it wasn't changed.
So, but it's a mark. So it's more of an excuse than a reason. There is nothing stopping you. The ACC Act does not stop you from declaring your asset public. So it's more of an excuse than a reason. So you hide under that. I'm declaring my asset, but it's not seen by no one. But it's called declaration. So that's why the Citizens Manifesto says publication.
Hey, Marcella, quickly, fact that we already understand the issues, the economy, inclusiveness, and all of that. Is it safe to have, town halls or have debates for politicians to speak to these issues rather than just pushing them to do manifestos which perhaps people will not even read or understand what they're saying?
You see, Lamana, I'll flip your question. So let's examine the void in the absence of manifestos, and then it becomes reasonable why manifestos are necessary. They go to town halls. Well, some of them are not town halls, but community spaces where supporters are gathered. And some of the utterances are very, very weird. Why? Because they don't have a message. So you go to the audience, you say things that you otherwise have processed.
But we already know these issues, Marcella. People in communities, there is a Citizens Manifesto. They want employment, the young people. People want access to healthcare. They want water. They want light. These are the issues we see almost in every other manifesto. Fix the economy. You were talking about inflation earlier. Livelihood and the living standard of people.
In fact, I say everything is a priority right now. That's why the manifesto for the political candidates, the presidential candidates, for example, would give us the top 3 issues that we should concentrate on, because they'll not be able to do everything. And when they are able to articulate the top 3 issues, they will be able to tell us how are they going to find money to finance those issues. And one of the things that politicians should say, what you may, they are very influential people. They should be able to inspire the country towards a vision. I was in high school when the MPRC took power. Citizens were tired with the political system. But one of the things I found very useful, even at that age, was the way citizens were inspired towards certain action. The cleaning of the city was voluntary. Young people started demonstrating their skills, and they started drawing beautiful pictures, envisaging the Sierra Leone they wanted to see. And we are yearning for leaders who would inspire people towards community action. We are yearning for leaders who would look at what's happening in the global system and find solution. They know that, yes, over the past 5-10 years, we have known that the effect of disease in one country or in one place would go into either a pandemic and affect the entire world, or otherwise affect the entire region, as the case of Ebola. And fast forward COVID-19. We have seen what the war in Ukraine and Russia and the impact it has on the entire supply chain of the world. Now, we don't want leaders who come to power and they are using the very issues we are talking about, the problems. We know the problems. We all can articulate the problems. We want to see leaders who can now articulate the solutions that could drive all of us together and find, answers to our common challenges.
Let me go to you now, Andrew. In the IGR report that you published, another aspect of it was the fact that Sierra Leoneans needed, lesser hands, because the stronger hands from the Sierra Leone police was an issue of concern. So particularly, what would you expect in the manifesto in terms of the Sierra Leone police and what, the people of this country have asked for?
That's why we want manifestos to be out. Because we want to see ideas. I mean, as Marcella is saying, solution. What are your ideas on police reform? Because it's the same quality of policing that we've been having, regime after regime. So what is your idea about police reforms? How do you protect, the media? How do you protect civil society? How do you protect civic space? How do you promote police reforms? So if you look at the biometer we did, President Bio made 70 promises, and 40% of those promises, 70 promises on governance, and only 40% of those promises are either being completed or made significant progress towards completion. So it means governance is a major issue. So where you can see massive progress in things, in areas such as lands, such as education, tourism, but the governance, where you have policing, where you have justice, and until and unless we get that right. So if you look at the MCC score, we're scoring well on many other indicators, but the indicator on state effectiveness, which is really where you have, of course, we're doing well on ruling justly and stuff like that, but a critical indicator on state effectiveness, which is at the heart of governance, it's what we want to see. And I normally say, passing the MCC is not just about the money. Passing the MCC is really about demonstrating that you are making progress in managing your own state. So to me, and one of the ways of demonstrating that is really passing your governance indicators, because governance is one area where the state gives to citizens, demos star kratos. It gives to citizens, the authority to citizens. So the state normally takes most of the authority to itself. So what is needed, when you say, I will reduce orders from above, it means we have a procedure where Lamran and I have the same authority under the law. We have accorded the same rights under the law. So the more we see governance, more commitment, stronger commitment to governance, to democratic openness, the more we have a better state to manage. So that's why I don't want to say, I don't want to be cynical to say there is much more meaning to the delay in the manifestos, but people are really curious to see what are your solutions. For example, the water crisis in Freetown.
Yeah.
The last time we checked, in February, it was 52% of people in Freetown saying water is the biggest priority for them. In March, we did not do a survey, but that figure will be higher. It was not surprising to see when we looked at the biometer, the water sector only fulfilled 33% of its promises. So the more you do promises, especially promises that are catalytic, and they deliver on those promises, and this is where manifestos are key, the more you change society. So it's really the broad and the grand vision of political parties that we want to see. So you and I, from the civil society and the media, will start interrogating it. One of the things we're thinking about, even as part of the debates program, even in IGR, is to see how we can get a group to critique. So even before election, we can actually critique. You mentioned something, Lamrana, to say 60%, largely most of the manifestos are the same. So you can actually look at the manifesto and say, this APC manifesto, this SLP manifesto, whoever wins the election, 80% you agree on this. Yeah. There's no way to oppose because you agree on this. Maybe you can only disagree on strategy, but you agree on delivery of these things. And then you say, these are the areas you differ, And these are the hollow statements you may need to clarify, maybe in the process of the campaign. But we need that analysis of those policy documents, which is really is a mark of the platform.
Marcella, we've seen the Jewel Bill. We've also heard about, well, the 30% minimum quota for women in governance. And, all of these are in writings, but in actual sense, in a day-to-day world, do you believe in all of these ideas? And is it actually fruitful? Are we seeing them into play?
So let me pick on the conversation that Andrew mentioned when he talked about how the political party manifestos, the sameness in the manifestos, and this thing keeps coming up. And I normally tell people that when the party manifestos are the same, it shows we are talking about the same context, and it speaks to context reality. In fact, in 2018, that was how we got the cross-party consensus for the GIWI, the Gender Equality and Women's Empowerment Law. We picked all the manifestos, and all of them were articulating that they will promote the minimum 30% quota. And so we say, all of you agree, so why are you dissenting now? And that was there when it dawned on them that, yes, we made that commitment. So in the final analysis, we used the manifestos to hold them accountable to push for the law, because we cannot see you coming to the public now to say no, when in actual fact you made that promise. And us citizens, we picked that promise and ran with it to the point that we actually, yes, we didn't get what we want in the GIWI law, but we are better off than where we were. And for us as advocates, we celebrate the small wins because it's like a ladder, right? If we get to the 4th tier, we want to get to the 10th, we get to the 4th, it's still progress. Now to your question, if including women or getting the GIWI law is important, it is more than important. Yesterday I was reading an analysis, somebody posted it on Facebook, and that pricked my attention to go back and read the document. The post the person made was 19%, it's only 19% of books written by women that are featured on Wikipedia. And the flip side is you are missing 81% content. And don't just say 19%. No, you are missing 81% of the views of society. And that's why it's important. Women, us, we constitute 52% of the population. Do we want to miss the views? In a society led by men, that is why you will not have water. That's where you will not have clean energy. That's where health would be a concern. Because most of you talk to men, especially young men, you talk to them on a normal day, especially those that are strong and buoyant, they would hardly tell you they've gone to the hospital in the last 5 years. Maybe what they would have done is to take a couple of Panadol or malaria tabs or typhoid killers along the line. But they will never tell you I've been admitted in the last 5 years, the young men. But the young women are in childbearing age. They have to go in and out of the hospital. They access healthcare more. They have readily available evidence and experience what it means to interface with the healthcare system. Tell me, when a woman becomes the Minister of Health, that's the informed perception. You begin to put those things as priority. You begin to visit the healthcare system to bring them up to standard. So it is important to ensure that we have that balance in society, not just as a human rights question that I'm saying we need to have more women on the table, but equally so as a development question. The perception of the other gender needs to come into the development discourse, and making sure that that happens is critical for any society. So yes, my dear, it is very important. Some of us are very excited to see the progress that is being made.
We have a woman and 5 other women who are running mates.
You see, that is helpful. You know, many a times you go to the table and you find out that you are the only woman sitting on that table. It is not helpful. It is not healthy. When we have more women sitting on the table, we inspire the young girls. They begin to see that there is something to study for. There is something why I need to go to school. But if the society is so designed that the only thing for girls is to get pregnant and get married. You know, somebody once said to me, especially for our young women, they said, we don't have female youths. It's either, you know, a girl or a child or a woman. So that is it. We don't have processes in the society for young women to take the stage because it's either being a child or getting into childbearing. And when they begin to aspire, they begin to see older women taking the space and younger women to taking the space. Then our girls have something to yearn for.
As we try to round up, Marcella, with you, we know you are very busy this morning, but it's less than 50 days to the election. We're here asking for manifestos, and we don't know yet when the political parties will launch their manifestos. They've done their nominations and all of that. What should the public look forward to? What are the critical issues you're looking forward to as well to see in these manifestos if they come out?
Two issues. First and foremost is what I started off talking about, the void. You see, when you see what's happening in public, you know that political parties are planning. But what do? They plan for violence. They are organizing their platform now. All those political parties, they have ventriloquists. They are organizing them who to attack and who not to attack. They are organizing them for hate speeches. They are organizing them to counter discourse in the public that will better their life and my life. Because many a times they see the people as an isolated few. No, we are all. When there is clean water, it benefits all of us. Yeah. So that is why we want to demand the manifestos to come out. This morning, you say I'm busy. We're actually going to launch the Women's Manifesto today. It means that citizens have aspiration. Yes, your supporters will be there, they'll be dancing for you, yes. But there is a crop of citizens who want to see their lives change. I keep saying poverty is no longer fashionable. Yeah. And that brings me to your question, what do we want to see? Number one is peace. We want to see a situation where the political leaders are able to address this question of national cohesion. How are we going to bridge the gap? We cannot continue and leave such a country for the next generation where people from the north and the south, the east and the west begin to see themselves as opponents. No. And so politicians have come to fuel the divide more. No. We want to see how, for example, they can be able to articulate policy statements that could bridge that divide. That is first. And in fact, making sure that peace becomes, because we fought for it anyway. Mm-hmm. A couple of our colleagues who were democratic activists, they died in the process. So we need to make it high on the agenda. The second is development. Poverty is no longer fashionable. You know, the world is moving towards digitalization. In fact, it's postmodernism. We are still grappling with slums. And in fact, let's look at the 5 cities. Every day, you see people leaving their communities and building shanties. In fact, the host, I normally make a connection between street screening and street littering. The street is a dump site because people are living in the streets. No. In this day and age, people deserve to live in good and affordable houses. Where are the plans to construct basic facilities? I think the last time I checked was sometime in the 70s or the 80s when we had the low-cost housing. Recent governments have not been able to invest in that. And you see, Lamana, when we fail to do that, what happens? We make politics too attractive. Yeah. People are just coming to enrich themselves because before you come, you need to think that I am coming to deliver X, Y, and Z. And if I don't have, you know, the knowledge base and the aura to do that, I stay away. But now, the taxes we pay to a large extent is to fund the lifestyle of politicians. It is wrong. We have instituted local councils in 2004. We have said that central government should be lean central governments. They should be able to break down the holes of over-centralization and send resources to the local councils, which are the development agent. It's not so. Power is being gradually centralized again, and it shouldn't be. And so citizens need to ask, citizens need to request, and more importantly, the person who will be taking leadership of this country should be able to stabilize the leons.
Okay, and we'll ask you, same. You know, what are the critical issues? You've done the Citizens Manifesto. We don't know if they will align with what the political parties will be doing. But what are the critical issues or the things you're looking forward to in whatever manifesto will be coming out?
So symbolically, we'll be presenting the Citizens Manifesto to APC today. It's a large group. So we really want to see how the political party manifestos are in line with the Citizens Manifesto. It's a proposal that we're sending to them. And I remember during the launch of the Citizens Manifesto, the chair at the time, Omar Fofana, said, if I am contesting an election, I'll use this document and run with it because it's exactly what citizens want. It was surprising to see citizens from across the country were saying, I have an issue with policing. Take them off, introduce traffic lights. And then some people were saying, you know, these people need water. They need electricity. And basically what the Citizens Manifesto is saying, if we get the leadership that focuses on what citizens want, we'll get electricity. So let's put the distractions aside, because the meaning of power in Sierra Leone is largely about control, not about delivery of services. So normally what we ask for is how do we ensure that there's a total commitment to citizens. So all of those things, when you say, I'm going in for wealth, say declare your assets, it doesn't mean that electricity is not important or roads are not important, but it means we want you to have the right composed mentees to focus on the needs of citizens. So that's why in this week or in the coming week, when immediately the manifestos are out, we're launching an app we call SenseBoard. So SenseBoard will provide an opportunity to any Sierra Leonean with a handset, it's a smartphone, to say, I want to see what APC has for me for healthcare. What is SLPP saying about the economy? You just speak to that, and SenseBoard will say, this is what they told you. So political parties know that citizens will be looking at the manifestos critically, and so we really want to see how we democratize manifesto conversation. So all of that, a link has been prepared. We'll dump all of those documents in, and it will be shared. It's really novel, across Africa to see, especially young people that are mobile phone users. So you need to read all the manifesto. Yeah. You just need to say, what is in SLPP's plan for foreign affairs? Or my mother is sick. I cannot afford a health care for the next 5 years. What is SLPP or APC saying? I mean, any party that develops manifesto, not just those two. What are they saying about healthcare that I can rely on? And we educate citizens on that, so their vote becomes their life, so that you know that your maintenance or teamliness are all important. But in the end, it's about your mother's health, or your own personal health, or your own welfare, your employment. So there will be, and that's why we want political parties not to make hollow statements, not to make vague promises. Be concrete. So when you say road network, a lot of people want to see, no, I'll make this road here. It's always useful to calculate. If we have only 25% of the roads fixed, the next administration will say, no, I want to raise it up to 40% in 5 years. Because we keep struggling over limited sets of roads. So they make road na Kenima, they don't make road na Moyamba, but they don't make road na Makeni, but everywhere in Sierra Leone should have roads. Yeah. So we need a regime that will say, this is the budget that we have, this is the resource that we have, this is the amount of road that we can afford. And then we now discuss where should those roads go that will be critical for economic growth. So I think those are the things I will be looking at.
Okay, we're letting you guys go, but with the manifestos, if the manifestos are out, should we expect presidential debates to challenge those issues?
Absolutely. I want to believe that the political leaders should be able to face the citizens and talk to them. And if, in fact, you just brought another critical point. If we're going to the presidential debates, what would they be communicating without manifestos? So the manifestos are very key, both for the campaigning and equally so when eventually one person would have taken office. And in fact, when we have all of this, when we hear them during the presidential debates, there are some points that will also be able to take from one and push it to the other to say that this way this person is articulating how the economy would be fixed, or for example making sure that water is in the main cities in Sierra Leone is very important. Why shouldn't we run with this? So I think yes, we should have the presidential debate, and there is the I mean IGI, CGG, SLAG, and a number of other agencies are in the coalition that's organizing the presidential debate, and Sierra Leoneans would hear from us shortly.
Okay, Andrew, finally.
So I will just conclude by reiterating that your vote is your life. It's critical that every citizen understands that, especially young people. You might have made up your mind for which party you support. I'm not saying move, but I'm just saying for in the interest of your life, if you want your life to improve, just release your mind. In the next 40 days, this is a moment of critical decision making for the country. So if you say, I'm going to make my mind closed up, if you don't open up, you release your mind, you can be in that situation for God knows how long. So I think it's good when they say democracy, it's demos, the citizens, kratos, authority. There is no better time for you to exercise that authority than having the right vote. So that's why manifestos are critical. It makes us to have informed decisions about moving forward. It makes us citizens put to scale as to what they should choose and what they should not choose. And that's why political parties, as you develop their manifestos, do it right. I mean, as Marcella said, we have similar problems, similar issues in the manifestos because the challenges are more or less the same. Yeah. So that's why what we really want to see are strategies. This is reducing the inflation to single digits, and this is how I do it. I know people will not be paying attention to such sophisticated conversations, but things around as basic as healthcare, fixing roads, especially for those of us in governance, police reform. Police reform is key. And when you track the Afrobarometer, I think trust in the police is now around 19%, quite about the lowest for the past 10 years. So whoever is taking this state, that critical trust, I see the police, they are doing quite a fine job, going to communities, trying to build trust, but we can only build trust when there is political will to have a civic-led policing. And the approaches to how we achieve that, I want to see that reflected in manifestos coming up.
Okay, well,
thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Marcella, thank you for taking your time to talk to us.
We are coming now. We'll continue this, you know. Exactly. Yeah, it's your own time. We'll have more of civil society conversations and politicians as well. So I'm sure, and we are appreciative of it always when we call you. We missed you and glad you're back. So we'll make use of your time. But thank you very much for joining us this morning. Let's join Ransford McLean for the sports news this morning. Good morning, Ransford.
Good morning, Lamon, and good morning to Zoya and guests. And viewers who've been following the show this morning for our first story that's in football. Eastern Lion Football Club have punished newcomers Lithuanian Slifa yesterday by 5-0 at their home venue, that's Trade Center, east parts of Freetown. This has been the biggest win so far in the ongoing Sierra Leone Premier League. They've now registered 6 wins in 7 matches honored in the second round of the Sierra Leone Premier League, and have bagged the total of 46 points in second place on the log. Speaking to AYV, the one of the goal scorers, that's Prince Barry, said it is because of teamwork and dedication they are proving it for the club, and they are so desperate to be the champion for the season. Let's take a look.
Well, as you can see, we've played 6 games now. We've won 5, I think we've dropped 1. You know, we are going there as an Eastern team. We are not individual players. We are not playing like, we are not what's up against individual player. We are just fighting for us to keep our team spirit. You know, we are taking from the technical staff what they are telling us and we are exhibiting it in the pitch. That's our secret as Eastern House. We are preparing very well for our next game.
That's the beauty of the game. Can't tell for now. Very disappointing. Disappointing to the management. We lost a match like this 5-0 to East Lions. It's a massive, it's a huge one for us. But that's the beauty of football. Can't tell for now what the problem. We're going to go to the drawing board and try to see what we're going to prepare our next match.
Well, for the other 4 matches that played yesterday in the league, Real Republicans FC lost at home to Bo Rangers by 2-0. Old Edwardians as well defeated Port Authority, the Waterfront Boys, by 1-0. By Boy Warriors, the Sabano Boys defeated Mighty Blackpool, one of the title contenders of the league, by 3-0 at their venue. And FC Johansen settled to a 1-0 draw with Luawa FC. So today 2 matches are lined up in the league, and FC Salone, who are with 42 points, will lock on with 12th place. Lamboy FC, a debutant in the league, and of course 2 strugglers. That's Wulsum Stars will definitely play against Eastern Tigers in the ongoing Sierra Leone Premier League. 24 matches more have played so far, so 10 games are left in the league, and Bo Rangers are leading the log with 55 points, and Eastern Lions in second place with 46 points as the league continues. Continue to monitor the league so far on VAT. Now to another story. The Sierra Leone Football Association has certified 30 female and male veteran referees after they have completed a week-long member association course for assessors, instructors, and elite referees in Bo City. Acting General Secretary of the Sierra Leone Football Association, Mohammed Benson Bao, urged them to that they should fully implement the knowledge acquired during the 5-day course. The elite referees definitely will continue. They've continued as, and it will end over the weekend. So look forward to more on that. And finally, to cricket. For now, the Sierra Leone Cricket Association and they've continued the T20 Premier League with 8 cricket clubs, and one of the matches we watched over the past week is between Midwest played against Sierra Leone Police, and the board member Abu Kagbo called on government for support or to invest more on the league so that they'll have more athletes when it comes to international competition. Let's take a look.
National Premier League, which is ongoing now, and as you can see today, we have one of the rivalry match against which is Midwest versus Salone Police. 1 is the rivalry, and 2 is the table. But unfortunately, whatever that will be the outcome of this match, Salone Police still has lots to do to challenge for the championship. But the Midwest, they are in a comfortable position now as I'm speaking. And if you go to the cricket room, you will see that Midwest are in top performance to all the categories. Improvement in the cricket leagues. Midwest have shown their dominance for the past 2 years, likewise Police. But in terms of players, we've seen lots of good quality players recently from the Special Line side, because Special Line has shown a great improvement.
Well, that's all for sports, and back to you, Amadullah Monaba and Zuliatu Amin in our main studio.
Well, thank you very much, Ransford McLean, for the sports news this morning. And the good news is the Lions are trailing Bo Rangers. You know, we closing the gap. I know it's 12 points. Yeah, but we're closing the gap and we're scoring more goals. That's the good part of it. So in case we get more closer and get to same point, we'll win the league by more goals. But thank you very much for the sports this morning, and thanks for joining us as well. We're looking forward to more updates on the league as it's. So I understand Sierra Leone will be hosting the WAFU female tournament as well, and the home base squad are preparing for the AFCON
qualifiers. Absolutely. So the WAFU 4 will commence on the 22nd of this month and ends on June 4th. And AY will definitely will assure our viewers that we'll bring you all happenings for the WAFU Under 20 female competition in the country. And on that, so for the national team, Coach John Kista is the head coach. He has selected a total of 36 players for the home base on that. So we'll continue to monitor that as the team has resumed training in preparation for the match against Nigeria for March the 5 AFCON qualifiers. But Sierra Leone, unfortunately, Sierra Leone will not be able to host the match in Sierra Leone. Will play hopefully in Liberia.
Always a pleasure having you, and so thank you very much. Well, this is where we end today's edition of Wake Up Sierra Leone. Our quote for today says, "We cannot continue to rely only on our military in order to achieve the national security objectives that we have set. We have got to have a civilian national security force that's just as powerful, just as strong, just as well-funded," and this quote comes from Barack Obama, former president of the United States of America.
Many thanks to our guests who've joined us this morning, to you, our viewers who've been with us these 2 hours, and listeners as well. Thanks to our sponsor, Commercial Bank, for their support to the program. Continue to stay with AYV throughout the day as we have other exciting programs coming up. We'll meet tomorrow. Wake Up Sierra Leone returns at 8 a.m. We have been your presenters. I am Amadou Lamgandapa.
And I am Zulaiha Hamid. Have a lovely day. Bye-bye.